Hi, I'm Somer Hackley,
And I am Zen Mac, and this is the Art of Search Hiring Manager series.
and these are stories and insights about all things hiring. Well, Zen, it's great to see you again, as always.
Hello, Somer. Good to see you.
Hello. All right. Well, I'm very excited for today's episode. So, with us today, we have Akanksha Talya. So, I met Akanksha through an executive network for product leaders, and she's one of those people who really understands hiring in the context of business transformation. So, she's a seasoned product leader and a tech executive with deep B2B SaaS experience, known for building products that drive growth and leading teams through major change. And on top of that, she's had roles across product, go to market, M&A. So she really knows what it takes to hire the right people to move a business forward. Well, Akanksha, thanks so much for joining us today. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super thrilled to be here. It's an honor. Looking forward to our chat.
Yeah, us too.
I'm very excited. Well, let's jump right in then, especially across a leader across all these different functions and this kind of executive level. I often find that you will step into an organization that perhaps already identified that they're in transformation. You often tend to inherit a team, perhaps needing to balance that with bringing in some new talent. Like, what are some of the tools that you can share with our listeners on how would you assess the current team? When do you decide to invest in internal folks versus maybe bringing in a couple of new, like fresh perspectives? I'd just love to hear you share.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will start by saying people get scared with the word transformation, T for transformation. The word transformation can imply that something is a problem or a company is not growing, and that's actually not the case. I believe that even hyper growth is a transformation. Profitability turnaround can be a transformation. Cultural change is a transformation. In accelerating innovation velocity can be a transformation. And anything that touches more than one function in a company, when it's a company-wide priority, I think that's what signifies that the whole company needs to move in one direction, and hence you need to have like a transformation-like focus. So I don't run away from the word transformation. I run to it because it signals opportunity for personal growth for anybody who's in it, for business impact, and then also leadership. So I think that's one mindset that I always walk into and also always encourage. Now, the first question rather is, it's very important to understand, what is the transformation trying to achieve? What are the goals, right? Is it about growth? Is it about efficiency? Both of them. Cultural innovation, as I mentioned, a couple of those, the working backwards from what is the business goal that we are trying to achieve, and where is the company in the journey of the transformation? Is it early? Is it midpoint? If they've tried a few things and they haven't quite worked, so they are pivoting. So really understanding, what are we trying to achieve? Where are we in the journey sort of is the foundation scaffolding of what I look for, and understanding the role that I need to play as a leader in bringing the whole company along.
Mm.
Now, with that, as you said rightly, it's a tightrope that you have to balance in keeping the existing fabric and then evolving to where it needs to go, especially from a talent perspective. It's a very, very tightrope, because the one thing that you cannot do is rip out domain expertise from the organization.
Yeah.
Domain expertise, and it could be in form of customer understanding, it could be deep industry expertise. You can't do that. You need that, and you need to preserve it to the extent that you need to, and but harness it. So I always pay very specific attention to, where do we have domain expertise that is critical for the business to go where it needs to go. We cannot rip that. At the same time, there are often cases where you want to bring in some new people that can be a catalyst to the transformation. So I walk in, and this is not something that is probably going to be net new, but every leader in my capacity sort of walks in, does a lot of listening, understands what teams do we have, what are their skill sets, their capabilities, cultural tendencies, like who's defensive, who's passive, who's engaged, who's hopeful, like how are people showing up. I think that's a very, very important indicator. And in my mind, I sort of assess people and capabilities in three buckets. Like, who are the people and capabilities that have potential? Who are the people and capabilities that have adaptability? And who are the people and capabilities that have alignment to where we're trying to go? It
Mm.
really anchors me on all the things that we sort of need to go together as a company to where we need to go. then it has happened to me many, many times that you come to the conclusion that you need to retain domain expertise. So then the question is, how do you bring in additional talent if it's already not in the company to harness that domain expertise to create momentum in the right direction? Where do you invest and where do you infuse? And more often than not, that infusion is of catalysts, of people who are, again, good harnessers, people who are trying to break inertia, who are catalysts, who bring in new ways of thinking. And, oh, by the way, are experts in bringing and the whole company along. That is what I have found oftentimes is what needs to be injected because they are not jaded, they're bringing a fresh perspective, and they are respectful of the history of the company because sometimes you have to pay homage to that and build a bridge to the future versus wipe the past and then create something from. I particularly pay a lot of attention because transformations cannot happen without bringing people along the journey. So that's sort of those are my three ways of thinking about it: potential, adaptability, and alignment, and then where to infuse and where to invest. I would like to also talk about where I invest, right? Like people that you want to keep because they may be cultural stewards of, they may be cultural stewards till date and have a lot of potential. They have a lot of trust and influence in the organization, and you want to elevate them, preserve them in the company, and elevate them for them to play a bigger role. And then they're open to learning and change. So it's a lot of things I mentioned, but ultimately preserve the domain expertise, find the people who have potential, are adaptable, are aligned. And if you're missing a change agent, if you're missing the energy, bring that from outside to elevate everybody and bring everybody along. There's no one lone wolf that you can bring from the outside that can drive the transformation. That would be a failure.
You're so right. Oftentimes we hope for a kind of a quick solution or a magic wand that you can wave and brings. It's really about the hard work that goes into what you just mentioned across the entire organization and listening. I love that. And the second question, and this is something that I've heard anecdotally, that you're known for making bets on people, not just hiring for resumes, but really for potential. What signals do you look for when you decide to take a bet on someone? Like, how do you balance that with the need to deliver like business results?
Yeah, I mean, as leaders, we have two main responsibilities. One is to create shareholder value, and then to create human capital value, like influence and impact the people's of careers while we are working with them in a way that they are becoming launch pads for their career growth. Like those are my two main responsibilities. And of course, we have to do both. In fact, you have to do the first and create room to do the second one, right? So that you can do both. Um, and I'm very passionate about making bets on people because my career would not have unfolded the way it did if people had not taken bets on me. When on paper, I didn't look the part of having done XYZ. I had potential, but I didn't have the paper experience to do that. And somebody observed me, a lot of leaders observed me and tapped me on the shoulder and gave me that runway to prove myself and made some mistakes and learned from it. So my career evolved because other people took a bet on me. So I personally really care about that a lot. But you have to balance both of those things. You deliver business results, have the scaffolding in place, and you find high potential people who you want to bet on. And those high potential people can come from internal talent, or you can bring people from outside too through your network. When it comes to identifying people who have high potential, right? Like, again, very, very simple things. Are they fast learner? Do they have bias towards action? Are they self-aware? And do they have the gravity that people listen to them, follow them, even though they may not have the title? They may not have people reporting to them. Can they influence from a very short span of control, but a very high span of influence? And those people may be internal, and those people may be external. And your second part was how do you balance results? So this will sound very academic, but I'll give you a 3D framework that I sort of came up with a couple of years ago. One is I look at the portfolio of talent in three buckets: deliverers, who are proven operators who will make sure that the business gets done, business gets taken care of. And it's very important for me as a leader to put proven operators in place so that risks are removed from the business. Deliverers, developers, people, and I don't mean software developers, I mean people who have high ceiling, but they are work in progress. Like I was at one point in my career as a product executive or even a first-time sales leader. Developers, and then disruptors. I look at my talent in that portfolio, and if most of my talent is of one kind, it will. So I need enough of all three. Not all disruptors, not all developers, that people who are performing under their ceiling and are taking a bet on, and not all developers. That means you will not take risks. So when I sort of sit down in the company wide and look at that portfolio, then I know what is the mix I have. And if I don't have one of enough or three of those enough, then I go look for those pieces. And that's where I lean in. Once I take care of the deliverers and the disruptors, then I focus on what is the bench of talent that I'm going to lean in to grow. And there is a way to do that too. You pair them up with the deliverer. You give them stretch projects, but you can't risk the business. So you pair them up with the deliverer. You give them a runway or projects which are high visibility so that they can prove themselves out, because they have to prove themselves out. And then, but at the same time, also have the scaffolding that if something doesn't work out in that project, somebody else can sort of coach them and lead to a success or a learning for the company. But potential is all indicated by those four things. Can they learn fast? Do they have bias towards action? Are they self-aware, and do people hear them? Do people listen to them? And today is such a wonderful time to ask a question around AI. If they're learning AI themselves, like it's very easy to tell anybody who you're interacting with, who's taking initiative to figure out what AI means to them personally and how they are learning, versus waiting for a large corporate to tell them the tools that they should be adopting. That itself tells me a lot about where they stack up in those four areas. It used to be a little harder actually before, but now it's much easier because we are all trying to figure this out together.
I love that you said, well, all of that you said, but the specifics around just the intention of the pairing up in the way you said, look, developers and the people that are up and coming, so to speak, and giving them that kind of scaffolding and leadership and mentorship. But you've also left room for them to grow into deliverers as well, which is really neat. I love hearing that. Third question, a little bit of a change in topic, but so you've worked across industries and functions from, say, product to sales to innovation. Looking back, what was one of the hiring, I guess, snafus? I don't really want to use the word mistake because I feel like we all got here because of them. So it's not so much a mistake as in a learning opportunity during these transformations. Like, how did it shape the way you hire now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have two examples actually, which were two very important learning moments for me as an executive hiring manager. And one goes against the conventional wisdom that is often shared. So one is from, a larger company and one is from a startup environment. Oftentimes there is this push that if you are being brought in as an executive leader, you will bring an army with you. Or said in a better way, you will have followers that you will bring along with you. And I think that's correct. You should have followers. But that doesn't mean that everybody that has followed you through your career would be the right person to bring in the context of this environment that you are stepping into. So again, going back to, there was a time in my career, I think I would say 8, 9 years ago, I moved into in a role in a company that was going through a transformation, product executive role. I didn't have domain expertise. I tried my best to harness the domain expertise that was in the team by finding who those people were. And then I brought somebody along who I had worked with because they were proven change agent and they were proven, leader. But over time, I realized like they were not the right fit for that industry. And especially for somebody like me who has moved across industry, it becomes a very important question that what are my blind spots? Not just what this person needs to do in this company, but what are my own leadership blind spots? And how does this person that I'm trying to bring, oh, by the way, from my network that everybody advises I should do in my first 30 days, because apparently people are measured on what you're bringing in your first 30 days. I have found that conventional wisdom to not be applicable in all situations. And that was my very first, very big learning moment as an executive. And I learned from it. So that's why I go back to the very first principle of what is the transformation trying to achieve? As I said, where are we in the transformation? What has worked? What are the skills needed? What are the personal agencies needed or the leadership qualities needed? And if I happen to have somebody in my network, I will open doors for them. But I'm not going to force it because that's what I measured on in my first 30 days. How many people have I brought from my network? Because that's the wrong metric to measure myself on. The second one is from a startup space. So I was fortunate to be at two startups, and in one of them, I was lucky that the founders trusted me with running the sales organization, and I had no business being a sales leader at that time in my career. And I'm so grateful that I got that chance because now I have this commercial intensity that I bring to any product organization that I build. But as a first-time sales leader, I was trying to build out the founding sales team. I did not know what I did not know. So I was new to sales. I was good at it myself, but my job wasn't to sell myself. My job was to build the organization that will sell and remove me to be in every deal, right? That's the goal. I brought in somebody who was not right for the stage, but also had not sold into that persona. And if I wish I had taken the time to speak to other sales leaders who were way ahead of me in their careers, had tons of expertise, and asked them, what is it that I don't know that I should be looking for that will impact the ramp of this person that I'm going to bring in? And if I'd asked that question, they would have told me, hire somebody who has been at this stage, the stage that you're building for, can survive in a startup and can work with the ambiguity. Everybody told me that. But the persona that they have sold to. Don't hire somebody from an infrastructure company if you're an application company. And oh, by the way, selling to CROs is a very different ballgame than selling to an IT leader, even if you're selling an application. So I wish I had asked that question coming from a place of self-awareness. What is it that I don't know that I need to know? And then hire for it. Hindsight 2020, it sounds so basic. Such a basic question, right? Like, what is your talent profile for this role? But that was a learning moment for me because I was stepping into a new function that I had not done before. I was the developer leader. Somebody was taking a bet on me as the developer leader. And I didn't reach for that scaffolding while it was available to me. I didn't reach for that scaffolding to understand what I did not know. That's why actually it goes back to the answer I gave you earlier. I think about the scaffolding I need to provide to the people that are developing in my organization so that they don't have those learning opportunities at the cost of the business that I once experienced. Hopefully that comes full circle to you.
I love all this so much. I can't believe how much wisdom you've packed into such a short amount of time here. And I mean, I was learning, honestly, people always think leaders that have a big group of followers, like that's a great, mark of accomplishment or just qualification of a great leader. But you're like, wait, maybe they're not the right people for this organization. And it's like, I wonder how often that dawns on people, right? So it's, yeah, because I'm thinking about how many folks I know, they're like, oh, I followed my leader to 3 different organizations. It's like, well, what are the chances that that was all perfect for all of you? So it's really interesting. And I love how like you really think holistically about the whole organization, like the business, and then also about the whole team that you're building, like with a lot of deliberate intent versus each role and what this role is going to be. It's more about, okay, these people here, those people there, those people there, these people work together like this, and who do we have, and how do we upskill these folks? And I love just, I think you put into words what a lot of people would describe as gut feel. And I think you really like just have this ability to reflect on why people are successful in the roles that they're in versus like, oh, people listen to them and here they are, right? Like they have great gravitas, right? So I feel like there's just a lot of goodness here in everything you said. So I'm grateful that you joined us today. Um, yeah,
I'm so glad
absolutely.
it was helpful. It gave me a chance to distill, for me, put my thoughts together, as I was sort of thinking about this conversation, and I was surprised how much of my own gut instinct I hadn't conceptualized.
Mm-hmm.
Had the opportunity to have this conversation because it allowed me to crystallize my own experience in a way that I hadn't done, on paper.
Right.
In some cases, yes.
Awesome. Well, with that, I think that is it for today. Well, thank you so much, Akanksha. This was a great conversation. We're so glad you could join us.
Thank you,
Thank you
and
so
happy
much.
transforming, everybody. Thank you.
All right. Take care.